Hello everybody, hope all is well during this hectic holiday season. This is the Rocker Dog Podcast, the only show on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, etc., that talks to musicians about their canine companions. I'm your host Tim Dill. Constantly interrupting me is my dog Charlie, and today we welcome to the show the affable guitarist and songwriter for the American Rejects, Nickolas Wheeler, who is also a producer and proprietor of Wheelhouse Studios in Nashville, and this is his Warped Tour loving Rocker Dog.
This is Dexter. He is probably about 16 years old. He's half Boston Terrier, and if all 4 of the DNA tests I've done are correct, he's got a little rat terrier in there, and then something called super mutt. I don't know what it is, but it sounds badass.
Yeah, I see that often too. The super mutt.
Yeah.
I should Google that to see why they say that on those
It's
DNA
like
tests.
it's like a whole slew of other breeds mixed together. I don't know if there's an actual formula to that, or if super mutt is just their cute way of saying he's a whole bunch of other shit too. We're not really sure what.
he's 1%, 10 different breeds.
Yeah, totally.
Did you really do it multiple times, the DNA?
I did. I mean, I feel like they've gotten better over the years. I've done 3 or 4 of them over the last decade since having them. The first one I did, they wanted me not only to send in like a slobber sample, but also a picture of them, which I thought was kind of cheating because they looked at them and they're like, "Oh, let's go with half Boston Terrier." I was like, "Well, yeah, you had me send a picture, and I think they even said, 'What do you think he is?'"
Right. That's so funny.
So here we are 10 years later. I just did the Embark one. That seemed the most accurate because not only did I get half Boston Terrier, I got quarter rat terrier in there too. And he's definitely a little rat. So, yeah.
Okay. And take me back 16 years ago.
Yeah.
What was going on in your life 16 years ago that you sought out this rescue?
You know, I wish I knew him 16 years ago. He was a little stray that was picked up by a rescue in Florida. I lived there for a hot second back in 2010, called Aliqua Animal Refuge. And it was one of those things where my band kind of lived, by album cycles, which isn't so much a thing anymore. But, we were one of those bands that would take a year to write a record and then, the majority of another year to record a record. And then we would get in a van or eventually a bus and go tour that record for 18 months. And then we would just do it all over again. So in 2010, I was coming off of one of those album cycles and I was like, cool, I'm going to have like at least a year, maybe a year and a half off at home. I'm going to get a dog. I was living alone. It was one of those things where it was the perfect storm. I was living alone. I had time off and I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship. So I was like, I'm going to get a dog. So I went to this rescue and, I'm always the like, play it safe, devil's advocate guy. I met Dexter immediately. And, it was one of those things where he was super sweet and he jumped up on the kennel that they had him in. And he didn't make a sound until I walked away. And I was like, okay, all right, that's the guy. But of course, I like I said, I'm the play it safe guy. I'm going to go home and like really consider what this means for me, what this would mean for the animal, etc. And I just couldn't stop looking at his face. I took a picture of him. So 3 days later, I call. I'm like, hey, I think they were calling him either Buster or Baxter or something at the time. I was like, hey, is Baxter still there? And they're like, yeah, but there's a family here looking at him. And they brought their dog to see how they get along. They're like, you can come down, but I don't know if he's going to be here. So I just got in my car. I was like, yeah, I just drove. It was like 20 or 30 minutes outside of town because it was like it's like a farm rescue that had horses and pigs and like all kinds of stuff. And I got there and I walked up. I was like, he's there in the kennel. Nobody else is around. I was like, where'd they go? And they're like, I don't know. Maybe they left. It's like, sweet, I'll take him. He's not a designer dog by any means. So I think he was like $75, something like that. And literally that day I was moving from Florida to Los Angeles. So I put him in my car and we spent 3 or 4 days on the road together, driving across the country. And that was like
a bonding experience or
bonding experience, just seminal time together.
Yeah.
But I guess to answer your question, when when I met Dexter, he was probably, they told me he was 2 or 3. I feel like
Right.
they always say that. They always kind of
Yeah.
guesstimate 2 or 3. The various vets that he saw along the way told me that he was probably on the older end of that spectrum. So I
Hmm.
kind of went off of that. In 2010, I assumed he was 3, which would make him, he's about to turn 17 in January. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, he's got the ill-fated January 6th birthday, which,
Will live forevermore.
yeah.
Did you have someone right away that you could depend on to watch him?
Oh, not at
I know
all.
you just explained the cycles, and you might have had, a large swath of time, but that wasn't in consideration when you're like, I'm going in to do this now. I can always give it to this person or my parent or this person.
Not at all. My family was living in Oklahoma at the time. Like I said, I was in Florida, moving to Los Angeles. I had, yeah, and I was living by myself. There was nobody to depend on. I ended up finding, a boarding place that I liked in Los Angeles, and also one here in Nashville. Now that he's older, I don't board him so much anymore. But
Hmm.
for the most part, like, I didn't. When I went on tour, I wasn't going to board him for months at a time. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not fair to either of us. So yeah, like I said, I thought I was going to have all this time off, and Tyson, the singer in our band, and I would go on little riding trips, usually road trips, and I would take him with me. I'd pile him in the car, and it was a blast. It was great having a dog there, while we were working, and then of course I loved having him at home. But then we got an offer to do the Warp Tour that summer, which would have been less than 6 months after I adopted Dexter. And the timing was right. It made sense to do it. And I was like, well, I hope you guys don't mind. I'm bringing a dog with me on the Warp Tour, which,
That
if
might
you're
have been
not,
the tour to bring a dog on.
honestly, yeah, yeah, if you're not familiar, Warp Tour, it's not a thing anymore, but it ran for a good 20,
Yeah.
25 years. Of every summer, it would be probably at least a 3 month long tour with just dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of bands, throughout the run of it. And it would be an outside festival, usually in a hot parking lot somewhere.
Right.
In some markets it would be a lot more temperate, but man, Warp Tour in Florida and Texas and all those places where it was pretty miserable. But I mean, we were outside all day, every day, and Dexter was, a young whippersnapper, probably just 3 or 4 years old at that point. So we honestly had a blast, and he loved it. I'd take him to the merch table every day and just plop them in a box of t-shirts because they were soft for laying in the shade. And it worked out great. Everybody loved him. He gets along great with people, not so much other dogs. Maybe that's why that family, like back in the day when I rescued him, took
Right.
off. Maybe they brought their dog and they didn't really get along, but that's fine. I mean, I consider myself an only child. Dexter is an only child as well, and that's just fine. But yeah, everybody loved having him around. I was super paranoid that, somebody would leave the bus door open and Dexter would get out, but he didn't seem to care about
Yeah.
being anywhere that I wasn't. So long as we were together, he was just fine. And I also didn't want to be that guy that expected other people to help me with them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, could you take my dog for a walk? Like, no, like he was my daily routine. Yes, on the Warp Tour, you never know what time you're going to play. Some mornings we played at, 11 or 12. And then, some days we would be playing as the sun sets. So the day is every day is different. Every day is exciting. And he loved that. Um, he loved the routine of there not really being a routine and just adapting every day on the road. And we both really thrived on that. Just like every day is different. Every day is a new place with new smells. As far as he's
Yeah. Yeah.
concerned, not so much anymore. We like being home a little more nowadays, but
Yeah.
the both of us. But yeah, man,
How
like,
was he at the end of that tour? Did he adapt into, more of a daily routine once you were home?
I mean, probably. I mean, we had a bit of separation anxiety at first. I do remember the one night on that Warp Tour that I went out with a friend. We played earlier in the day. I had a friend come. We were gonna go get some dinner in the city, because this was like on the outskirts of town in some parking lot of some fairground somewhere. I think we were in Montreal. Anyway, went into the city on the subway, got some sushi or something, and then I came back. And the most Canadian thing you could ever imagine, I come back and there's fireworks and they're synced up to a medley of Celine Dion. And of course, I'm freaking out because I'm like, of course, the one night that I leave Dexter in his crate, in my bunk, there's fucking fireworks.
Yeah.
But but he was okay. I don't honestly. Those were the days when we did tour so much. I don't really remember the at home in between time. After that
Hmm.
Warped tour, we finished writing that album in various places, be it Los Angeles or back in Florida or in whatever other miscellaneous location we might have been in. And then he came with me to Venice, California, where we made the record, and he lived with us for 6 months and came to the studio every day.
That's
Greg
great.
Wells made that record. He had a dog, a golden retriever, Ellie, I think was her name. They actually did get along really well, and it was really fucking cute. I was a little nervous because I knew he got along with people better than other dogs, but they got along really well, and every day that was a great energy to have around. That was when we made our fourth record, Kids in the Street. But then after that, we went on tour again, and he came on the bus. It was,
It's so
those
funny.
were his formative years, and it's because of that, I think, that bonding time we spent on our initial road trip across the country, and then just being on a bus and always being around a dozen dudes, that I think his most safe and content feeling place is here in my studio, especially
Right.
when I have other people in here working. When I'm in the house, we both have some kind of anxious energy, I think, and he's always pacing around and needing to kind of change the scenery. But when we're in here working, he'll just get up on that couch and just sleep until I say, "Yo, it's time to go home."
Yeah. Time to punch out. Your
Yeah,
work is done here.
totally. Uh-huh.
Now, as the studio dog, does he bring out the best in other people? Does he seem to, I can imagine, if you're producing another artist, there's always maybe butterflies or just, red light fever. But does the dog bring out the best in your visitors and your collaborators?
I like to think so. At the very least, everyone loves to walk into a studio and see a dog.
Yeah.
Like I said, Greg had Ellie, and then I believe her name was Ellie. Sorry, Greg, if I'm getting that wrong. And then before that, we made a record with Eric Valentine, and he had a dog as well. And I grew up with the dog. It's just a great energy, and especially when you're away from home, maybe you're traveling. I have a lot of artists that come to Nashville from out of town to work, especially if you're away from home, maybe away from your animals. It's always great to walk into a studio and see a dog. It's
Yeah.
it's a great energy, and that's him grumbling.
Yeah. I hear that again and again on that show. And I mean, I can relate just on a working atmosphere. I know a lot of offices sometimes have dogs, and whenever you walk in and see a dog, it's like, okay,
Oh yeah.
these guys are cool.
Everybody immediately puts their guard down and feels more comfortable. And I think in this environment, in a studio environment where you have to be creative and you have to try to not be self-conscious or overthink, it's a great energy just to immediately disarm anybody who walks through the door.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Now, how did Dexter come about? Did you just not go, what was his original name? You were saying it was like Baxter or something close to that?
Buster or
Buster.
Baxter,
Okay.
and I was like, well, I don't know how long he's been called that. I better call him something similar. I always name my animals after TV characters. So it was 2010. I was watching a lot of Dexter at the time. It was perfect. Um, and yeah, he's got this brindle vibe going on, and all of my guitar straps are animal print, fake animal print, but I
Yeah.
remember my friend who was with me. He goes, "He looks like one of your guitar straps. You have to get him."
That's too funny. Now, he's also a part of Team Underbite, who would also
Oh
include
yeah,
Phoebe.
yeah. Phoebe was my half Boston, half English bulldog. Rescued her in 2014, a few years after Dexter. Unfortunately, I lost her prematurely. She had a brain tumor, and I only had her for about 4 years. But
Yes.
it's because of Dexter that I found Phoebe. Like I said, half Boston Terrier. That was the clincher right there, and an underbite. And now I love English bulldogs too. So Bostons and bulldogs all day, underbites all day. I definitely have a type.
Now, do they file their teeth down if they have an underbite, or is that just the way it is? Because in photos, it looks like they've got level fangs.
I never did that.
Okay.
Dexter probably wore his down. He used to be a chewer, not so much anymore. But But yeah, Phoebe kind of came like that. Her underbite, she kind of had hippo teeth, like they were just flat on the top.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I asked. I wasn't sure
Yeah,
if that was natural or,
I'm not sure. She was abandoned and needed to be rescued fast. So I have no idea what her backstory is. I don't know what Dexter's backstory is. I think as far as Dexter's concerned, I think maybe he was like the runt or the one in the litter maybe they didn't care about, and he just got out one day because he definitely he definitely has no instincts left. I can't imagine him living on the street for more than about 2 hours. So I think he was just picked up. Maybe he got out of somebody's yard, or maybe I don't know, maybe somebody abandoned him, but he was picked up pretty quick, I think, because yeah, like I said, I don't think he'd survive long otherwise. I wouldn't either. I can't camp or do anything outdoors, so we're the perfect pair of indoor dogs here.
yeah. Now, how did Phoebe come to your attention? Were you seeking her out, or did the opportunity of like this dog needs rescue and somehow got on your radar and you
Yeah,
stepped
I
in?
mean, I was living in LA at the time, with my girlfriend at the time, and we were looking to get a second dog, and like I said, Dexter is fantastic, so we started looking on Pet Finder for Boston Terrier mixes, and it's one of those things where when you see them, you'll know, and
Hmm.
got an email one night with Phoebe's face, and yep, like she's the one. And I remember I was on the East Coast, I think it was Boston or New York at the time, and Phoebe was in LA. I was like, we got to get back as soon as we get back. We're not even going home. Getting in the car at the airport and driving to meet Phoebe. And that was another case of got there, met Phoebe, said, okay, I'm going to think about this for a minute. But that time I didn't even get to the car. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I know how this plays out. Like, Phoebe's coming home. So, yeah, we got her that day.
And what kind of reception did Dexter give her?
I think, like I said, he's kind of an only child. He tolerated her. He was the older brother that she was obsessed with and wouldn't leave him alone. Dexter is very beta. He's not the man of the house, I guess you could say. So Phoebe definitely bossed him around, and he just let her. I think it was one of those things where she's a sweetheart, stubborn but super sweet, and you know we loved her, and so Dexter did too. But
Hmm.
now that it's just me and him again, I think it's just gonna stay that way for a while. He seems to be happy and thriving, and really doing well, especially considering that he's 16. So yeah, we're just gonna keep things the way they are for a minute.
Yeah, sounds good. Sweet 16.
Hell yeah.
Another note I took on with Phoebe, and maybe this is more your girlfriend's role, but she became a therapy dog and was brought to nursing
that
homes
was
just
that
to,
was something my ex-girlfriend did, was actually take her to therapy dog training. Yeah, that was really cool, and I got to tag along a couple times to take her around nursing homes and things, and that was amazing. That was
yeah.
actually a really great experience. And I also took them to agility classes, which was really fun. Dexter was great at it because, like I said, he's kind of a beta, so he'll pretty much do whatever you tell him to. He was amazing at it. And Phoebe, even though she was super stubborn, was getting really good at, going through those agility courses and climbing
Okay.
those ramps and, walking across those little, pummel horses or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
Jumping over little hurdles. That
Was
was a
that
lot
at
of
was
fun.
that at a place called the Zoom Room?
Exactly. Yes.
I saw I think it was a video you guys put. It might have been on
Okay.
their account.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I thought maybe that was just a training facility, but that was more of, like you said, agility training or just
Yeah,
agility
they did
exercise.
they did obedience classes. There was always a Halloween costume contest, stuff like that. That Phoebe
Nice.
actually won one year. She was Belle from Beauty and the Beast. But yeah, they're mostly like agility training, and that was really fun, and it just another really cool like bonding thing to do with Dexter and Phoebe.
Yeah. Well, I know these dogs mean a lot to you. I mean, I've got some quotes, just particularly Dexter. I know Dexter moved with you 6 different times, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you might have slept in your studio for a month, with Dexter
Yes.
by your
Oh my
side.
goodness. Yeah. Our most recent move was across town, here in Nashville. and it was during COVID. Their housing is very hard to come by just because there's so many people moving to Nashville and there's just not enough places for them to live. So the timing of everything of like selling my old house and moving into the new house and moving the studio into storage and then into a new studio, and is kind of a nightmare. But now it's one of those things that I look back on and I'm like, you know what? That month that my Airbnb lease ran out and my new house still wasn't ready to move in and I had to sleep on the couch in the old studio with Dexter, like, yeah, that sucked. But like now I look back on it, I'm like, oh, that was a great time. Don't want to do it again, but that was fun.
Was he, I get the impression too, he was valuable to you over COVID. I mean, was he just a solid
Oh,
companion when,
absolutely.
a lot of times we were blocked off from the outside world?
Absolutely. I do really well on my own and living alone. I don't know if I could have cohabitated with anybody, be it a partner or a roommate or anyone for that matter. But I do think that if I didn't have Dexter to talk to every day, I
Right.
would have gone a little nuts. I do think I was very fortunate, and I think it was the perfect setup for that period. But yeah, I mean, and when lockdown happened, it was the spring and the weather was gorgeous in Nashville at that time, and so Dexter and I went on a lot of walks outside, went on a lot of hikes. That was, shoot, that was almost 4 years ago now. So yeah, he would have been like 12.
Hmm.
And I would have been aware that he was a senior dog, but he was doing great on hikes. We went on a couple that I didn't know what we were getting into, because it was the first time I really had the opportunity to take advantage of there being nothing to do, nothing to work on. Let's go explore. There's a lot of great
Right.
hiking spots around Nashville. And a couple of them we got into it and I was like, man, I'm sorry, dude. I did not know what we were in for. There are rocks, there's waterfalls, but he killed it. He did amazing. He was yeah, he was the one that was thriving during that period.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've transferred that affection and showed it with a tattoo on your calf. Is that Dexter?
That is. Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually got 3 dog tattoos. In I want to say it was maybe 2008, 2009. It was 2008. I got to go on that show LA Inc. I don't know if you remember that
Yeah, yeah.
reality show about Kat Von D's tattoo shop in LA. But I got to go on LA Inc. and had Hannah do a dog portrait of the dog that I grew up with.
Okay.
Her name was Chiquita, so it was the dog coming out of a banana, and it was the perfect portrait. Like it was portrait, but like kind of cartoony, but like realistic, but super colorful and fun. Like it was the perfect marriage of tattoo idea, tattoo artist, and then execution. So a couple years later, when I got Dexter, I was like, I gotta find Hannah. Like I need to do a Dexter one of these on my other leg, and she had moved from LA to Chicago at that point. And Tyson and I, the singer in my band, we were on a writing trip in Chicago. I had brought Dexter with me, and I was like, I got to take a day and go see Hannah so she can do this tattoo. I'll tell you the gross part of the story. So I go to get the tattoo. It's like a 3 or 4 hour piece. It's intense because it's the entirety of the side of my calf. So, after you get a tattoo, they put a bunch of goop on it and they wrap it in saran wrap. What you're supposed to do for the first couple of days is clean it in the shower and then rewrap it. I never do that. I've had way too many tattoos to care about doing that. I just don't do that anymore. So after I took a shower later or whatever, I just got in bed and went to sleep. And Dexter, being a Boston Terrier, or mix at least, he loves to burrow under the covers. So, as he would normally do, I just let him under the covers. I forgot that I had a gaping wound on my leg at this point, so it got extremely infected. The ink from his entire face fell out, so I had to go
Oh my
back
gosh.
several months later to get his face redone. And if you've ever had a tattoo touched up or added to or covered up, it hurts exponentially more than the original tattoo. So yeah, technically I've got Dexter tattooed twice on my leg. And then the day that I moved to Nashville, which would have been 5 years later, I got a little skull tattoo. It's a skull with an underbite, and I've got that on my ankle to kind of represent Dexter and Phoebe as well.
Okay, I think I saw that on your Instagram, but I didn't click on it because I didn't recognize it as a dog. But
Yep.
you got to get some good shots of those tattoos and either send them to me or put them up on
Oh,
your socials for
definitely.
sure.
Definitely.
So Dexter also appears on your in-ear monitors. There's like a
Yes.
little iconography. That was cute.
Yeah.
And then were both dogs done as picks? I know Phoebe was a pick, was a guitar
Hmm.
pick, but in the post you said now I have two to throw out, but I only saw the one picture of Phoebe. So was Dexter also a pick?
Oh yeah. And I still throw those out. I did the thing where I got an ink pad and put his paw in it and like just got the perfect transfer and sent it to Bert at Intune Guitar Picks. They're who make my picks, and they actually figured out how to like shrink it down and like make it look perfect on this pick. And later on, I was able to have one of them create a line drawing portrait of Phoebe off of a picture. And so she's got a pick as well. I have a bag of those that, I'll have forever. But yeah, the Dexter ones are still in rotation. Those get played every night and thrown out in the crowd.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Well, listen, I end each show with what I call the Zoomies, and that's five rapid fire questions.
That's cute. I like that.
The first question is, do you kiss your dogs on the mouth?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, he's 16. It's disgusting, but of course.
And I did see a picture. I just saw a picture this morning after, the last couple of days of pouring
Oh
over
yeah.
your socials, but
We
buried
have
somewhere, there's a picture of you guys.
we have no shame. Yeah, we make out at home and in public, all
Okay.
all over the place. Yeah.
By the way, that is the correct answer. This has a right and a wrong answer. That
Of
is
course it
correct.
is.
So you're
Yeah.
one for one.
Sick.
The second question is if any of these dogs had a theme song, what would it be? If like walk up music to the plate or the red carpet music or do they have their
Oh
own
man,
custom song?
it's funny, custom song, man. I'm not sure, but what I do a lot is like whatever show I'm watching on TV, I just replace the entire melody of the theme song with the dog's name, either
Yes.
Dexter or Phoebe. Parks and Recreation had a great one for Phoebe. I'm not going to do it because it's obnoxious as all hell, but you can imagine what it sounds like. But yeah, you just replace the melody by just saying their name over and over to that tune.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that trick and employ it often.
The
Question
Office
three.
was another good one for her.
Oh, yeah. Question three started
Yeah.
as a joke, but this might actually have some realism to it since
Okay.
you've been on tour with your dog. But the question usually is if your dog went on tour, what would they insist be on the rider? I'm curious, did you ever have anything on the
Oh.
rider for your dog?
I probably had whatever dog food he was eating at the time on the rider. He's so low maintenance. You wouldn't think he was mine because I'm quite the opposite on the road. I need my creature comforts. I take my own pillow. I take my coffee rig. For Dexter, honestly, like, oh, he loves those rope toys that
Oh, yeah.
I would throw and he would chase them and bring them back. Now, honestly, like he is so not a dog. Like I've tried giving him various things to chew on. His favorite bone that that brand, whatever that was. The yak bones, the like yak milk things,
Right. Yeah.
all that stuff. He just doesn't care. He just wants his farmer's dog, and that's it.
That's
Like,
good.
yep. And then otherwise, he just wants to chill and pace around the house or chill on the couch with me. Like he doesn't want to chew or snack on anything. It's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Well, he's getting, I mean, that's maybe his age. He's just
Yeah.
mellowing out.
Yeah. You and me both, buddy.
Question four is, do you have a
I'm
dog
sorry,
voice?
those were supposed to be rapid fire.
Oh, yeah.
I just gabbed on for like 5 minutes, telling you everything he's enjoyed putting in his mouth. Sorry.
It's all right. So, yeah, question four is, do you have a dog voice? Do you speak to him in a dog voice or do you give him a dog voice?
Both. I think the voice that I speak to him in, you probably already heard it come out in this podcast, is also his voice. And Chris, our drummer, also has a Dexter voice that he does, that I can't quite replicate. It's his take on Dexter's voice, and it's amazing. We actually did a video for Pet Finder when we were on the road in 2012, and I had Chris do the voice. It was like a day on the road with a day on tour with Dexter or whatever, and I had Chris do the voice. And now years later, I watched it and I was like, that is unintelligible. Now I see why they didn't really do much with this video, because like you couldn't understand what the hell he was saying. I could understand because I know what Dexter sounds like, but like
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's another thing. That's another viral video you got to put out there.
Oh yeah. I gotta go find that. That was great.
Okay, last but not least, is there a dog organization or service you'd like to give a shout out to? Just someone who's done good for dogs.
Well, like I said, Pet Finder has always been really good to us. I found Phoebe on Pet Finder, and Dexter was actually a spokesperson for Pet Finder. Adopt, Don't Shop. Aliquot Animal Refuge, where I found Dexter. Like I owe them everything. Other than that, just I think the things Dexter would want to shout out. He loves his farmer's dog. He's on a prescription diet now, so he doesn't get it as often. But occasionally, if he starts being a picky eater, I'll throw a little bit in there, and he gobbles it right up, like this morning. And like I said, he's got a little anxiety. He's got some arthritis and some pain in his hip joints. So we're both on CBD now, and a company I just found that I love is Batch CBD. It really seems to do the trick. I mean, once I started giving him that, he started taking stairs again. He hikes his leg again. So I think it's working. It's doing something. And the packaging is just really classy. Like you wouldn't think it's for dogs. Like it's a great brand, and I think it's really helping him out.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out. Patch, Patch. Oh, Batch, Batch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll check it out.
Bacon,
Very cool.
Bacon flavored CBD tincture.
Oh, geez, who can resist that? Well, Nickolas, thank you so much for coming on. I tell you, like I said, when I went through your feed, I was like, this is going to be good. I got a lot of stuff, and I love meeting dog lovers and musicians. So this was a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk about this guy, and of course to talk about Phoebe. I'll talk about her forever too. But yeah, this is a lot of fun and different than any other interview that I usually do. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.